Hey, sports fans, Greg Medford, Medford Live, MKT USA, and I've got Lindsay here with us. Now, this is not Lindsay on the phone. This is Lindsay, like Lindsay up front. This is Lindsay in sales. Or you can say the quad, Lindsay the quad. So we met at a restaurant that I used to go to, Jeff and I go to all the time for lunch. And I just saw she was great with everybody and was such a hard worker, and I yanked her out of them, and we got her career change going. So how's it going for you so far?
Oh, it's great. I love it
Yeah.
here.
What's the most fun about working here?
Definitely the people that I work with. Keep everything fun and entertaining.
All right. Cool. And how's it going with Beth over here? Hey, Beth. Hope you're here to say hi to everybody.
Hi.
How's training going?
She's a wealth of knowledge along with Jeff. They just keep me informed on everything that's going on.
So we basically have got, you've got about 2 months in.
I've got work to do.
Okay, we'll let you rip it. So you've got about 2 months here now? About 2 months? Three. This is 3 months. So she went through and learned all the stations of making and worked. Everyone's like, please don't let Lindsay leave our department. And then she left everyone's department and ended up here. And now she kind of bounces between Jeff and Beth, learning how we service our customers the best. So she's doing her thing. Yesterday, we had occasionally she and I do a field trip where we'll head out and check out one of our local dealers, go talk to a prospective place, go look at a retail location that I wanted to learn something from. And yesterday was sweet. We were on the way to go down and look for, we were on the 101 and we're going to look for, I got some new cubicles for their offices, and I was just going down there to get the nod of approval, and we were going to stop at 2 stores on the way back. And on the way down there, driving on the freeway, no breakdown lane either side. I'm just driving along, and all of a sudden, the Jeep stops functioning. And I for the first time in my entire adult life, in my entire life, I've never ever in my entire life run out of gas. And I ran out of gas in the Jeep driving along. In a brand new modern vehicle, I ran out of gas. Awful, super embarrassed. I mean, as a pilot, I spend my life like looking at fuel gauges all the time, and to just run out of gas and not even know it was coming. I think it's because I'm bouncing between too many vehicles. That's my excuse. Lot going on. In any case, what else you got for us? What's exciting going on today? What are you doing?
Just reconnecting with older dealers that we haven't talked with in a while. See what's going on with them, how their business is going.
Cool. You got any cool prospects you can tell us about? Anybody or most intrigued by or interested in getting signed up with at this point? Someone who's like on your top candidate getting re-engaged? Who would that be?
I got a couple.
Who?
I have the second right in Indiana. I just talked to Martin Coins and Firearm, and I think he's in Georgia, Myrtle Beach area. Yeah. And he said he's had quite a few people reaching out for some knives that he hasn't had in stock, so he's excited to load up some inventory over there. And I do have Penco in New York. Talking with Winter over there, hoping to get loaded up with some knives as well.
Ready for the handstand push-up?
Right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh. Come on.
I got sides.
Are you keeping in the face, or are we going to break? Come on. Okay. Oh my God, you touched your head to the floor and dropped your knife. You're a badass. She's the beast, you guys. Quadzilla, Lindsay. We will enjoy your day. We're going to hit it. Come on, you guys.
Okay.
Down to my office. Let's go rip it.
She's gonna ask me to do it.
She bonked her head straight on the floor. I couldn't even believe that. I mean, I guess that's a CrossFit.
I would have broken my pelvis.
Oh my God. I almost broke my pelvis watching. Okay, well, here we go, you guys. The show. Is it Friday? So, let me just, I'm going to break the third plane here. Why do we have 2 cameras? What's going on?
The Facebook StreamYard errored, so I had to do it manually.
Okay, so we're doing it manually.
Do you want me to put it somewhere? Can you hold both and I'll grab the tripod for you?
Good. You guys get that set up and I'll keep doing my thing. So you know what I wanted to talk about today? I wanted to talk about something that I could kind of leave you with over the weekend. And what I was thinking about is the top 3 constitutional violations that we see going on. You know, so much in America that's happening is is opinion. So much of what's happening is style and approach, and we've got some things that are like to me seem like straight up violations. So I wanted to kind of leave you guys with the three things that I see going on that seem absolutely as absurd to me. Big violations. Stuff that spooks me a little bit. So the first thing is we're using or abusing Congress to go after a former president over something that no reasonably honest, self-aware person could say was his fault. And that would be the impeachment of a non-sitting former president. First of all, it's not constitutional. I think it's a mistake to make the argument once you're there. Too late. It's already happened. I think you keep kind of throwing it up as a footnote. But the other thing is there's the bigger overarching problem. They're doing something unconstitutional, which means it doesn't have much gravity. The real thing that's going on is they're prosecuting someone for public political speech. And the problem with it, people say, oh, it's just because they don't like Donald Trump. It's not true. The problem is if they can do it to a billionaire former president unconstitutionally, they can do it to you. And they can do it to General Flynn, and they can do it to Gina Carano, who they kicked off The Mandalorian yesterday, because she said going after people for their ideology and demonizing fellow Americans so that we start going after each other is how Hitler got away with burning 12 million people in Nazi Germany. And she was right about that. And they kicked her off the air. I don't think she even took sides. And this is what's going on. When you lynch a president or a former president unconstitutionally, you set the precedent for everyone to do it. The reality is, half of you work for a conservative company or a company with conservative leadership, and half of you work for a company with liberal leadership. And if every company started going after its employees for their opposing viewpoints, we'd all be in big trouble. And that's not how this country works. So Disney, shame on them. Shame on Disney. By going after someone for their free political thought. Shame on them. That's Disney. That's the most un-American thing imaginable. You know what Disney's got in common? You know who Disney has that in common with? Red, dirty, commie China. That's Disney yesterday had more in common with dirty red China than it had with America. Because last I knew, we could all debate. There was the plurality of ideas, the marketplace of free thought, free speech, and we could let our ideas be our soldiers and fall where they will. Now we're canceling people. We're changing their careers. We're canceling their careers. It's unconscionable. Unconscionable. So this is what happens, folks, when we tacitly approve of the lynching of General Lynn for 4 years. And we tacitly approve of the press lynching the president dishonestly. And we tacitly approve of the Senate and the House going after, on party lines, a former seated president for free political speech, free political thought. This is what happens when a president asks for security in D.C. before his big rally on the 6th and is denied. And then a little minor kerfuffle happens, and then everyone blames the president for insurrection. You know, I've seen violence around this whole country, as we all have for the last year. I saw almost nothing going on in Washington, D.C. I saw a bunch of people run into a building. I saw a couple of windows get broken by some nut jobs. And I saw an unarmed woman get shot in the neck by scaredy cats in the building. I mean, what did everybody think was going to happen? Just a little taste of reality here. Did everyone think those folks were going to grab everyone, tear their bodies limb from limb, and drag them through the streets? They were going to go in and yell and do some selfies, and they were just disrupting. Maxine Waters said it. If you see them on the streets, if you see them at their house, if you see them in a restaurant, make your voice heard. Say your piece. Disrupt them. Make them uncomfortable. That's all these folks were doing. Schumer said the same thing. Chris Cuomo said, when does it say protests are always supposed to be peaceful? I mean, they all said it. They've been saying it all year long. So, free speech. You got these group of folks got together after they basically staved off the greatest empire the world has ever seen, the British Empire. We staved them off and won our independence. And nobody would sign the Constitution until the Bill of Rights was scored. The very first among them was free speech and assembly. Free speech and assembly. The very second, not fourth, not ninth, not 10th. Not on a redo 2 years later. The very first was free speech and the right to assemble. Second, the right to keep and bear arms and assemble militias. Those were the first two things everybody agreed on. So, nope, we're not going to sign it. You got to do something to address these grievances we have, or we won't sign the document. And the very first one was free speech, because everybody who had to sign it all agreed that that needed to happen. And the second one, everybody agreed, it's the right to keep and bear arms and free speech. If they'd have had M4s in those days, they'd have said M4s. The founding generation was wise, though. They knew about wordsmiths and they knew about chicanery. So they just said arms. Second big thing I see going on right now is our U.S. banking institutions, who are underwritten by the Federal Reserve and funded by the Federal Reserve, which comes straight up from tax dollars. They're discriminating against companies they don't like what they do or make. Now, some of this stuff, the thing about rights is rights, most of us never exercise our rights, okay? It's that rare time when you need that you don't want them gone for. You may only exercise your right of free speech once in your life. You may only open your mouth big enough one time in your life that somebody wants to suppress you. That's the time you need it. Everybody else says, you can get away with all this stuff because most people don't use their right to keep and bear arms. Most people don't use their right to free speech. Most people aren't worried about quartering soldiers and incriminating themselves and speedy trials. But when it does happen to you, maybe that once in a lifetime, maybe not, maybe twice in a lifetime, you sure want those rights there for a reason. And the reason all of the Bill of Rights were there was to check the power of the federal government. They're running amok right now. And these private banking institutions, which are funded by the public, are now discriminated against companies like mine and the firearms industry and the suppressor industry. And if you make stuff for the firearms industry, and if you make shirts for the firearm industry, if you have the name rifle in the name of your company, you get discriminated upon. Now, many people out there, if you don't own guns, you might say, well, it serves you right. The rights protect you. Just because you disagree with me right now doesn't mean that my rights my rights shouldn't be protected also. Because what we know over time is that the winds of opinion and climate change throughout the decades. The Constitution was meant to be this keel of the ship that reaches into the future and steadies the boat, and is much more unchanging and less fickle and more steadying. It's not meant to be a document that tacks with popular culture. You LGBTQ crowd out there that's not necessarily the biggest Second Amendment crowd. You guys can all laugh and poke fun at the Second Amendment and all the folks who carry guns until some time comes along where something happens. I can imagine, it's not a stretch. Within my parents' lifetime, it was illegal to be gay, lesbian, transgender, or queer. And they were rounded up and murdered. That's within my parents' lifetime. That means within my children's lifetime, it could happen again. These rights are there to protect you, and guns, and speech, and hate speech. There's no such thing as hate speech. There's just speech. What happens when your speech becomes illegal or someone decides they don't like your speech? So there was 3 things I saw going on. The impeachment of a non-seated former president, constitutional. That's a constitutional boo-boo. Over his speech, most people haven't listened to it. It didn't incite insurrection or call for violence. It was far more temperate than almost anything we've seen from the House over the 4 years he was in office. So there's 2 big ones right there. The extension of that's now, corporate America is now seeing it being okay to discriminate against American citizens because our government is doing it against us and we're letting it happen. Yeah. And the last is our banking institutions that are discriminating against people for things that they do, doing legal things that are permitted and perfectly legal and accepted by many millions of Americans. Half of Americans at least are pro Second Amendment. I've seen things that as many as 75% of Americans are pro Second Amendment. So for banks to be shutting down the Second Amendment and lumping knives into the weapon category and shutting us down, which we've had happen at least 3 times now, it's unconscionable that we see this going on. And this is why we all must stand up when we see people's rights being violated. Because the violation of a few leads to the violation of the many. And we are the many. And you have to speak up and you've got to say something. Why do you think they're canceling everybody off the internet? Why do you think they're canceling everybody off social media? No rabble-rousers. And they're going to punish everybody for their beliefs. Punishing people for their beliefs is something that we hear from Pol Pot and Mao Zedong and Lenin and Khrushchev and Stalin and Hitler and Schumer and Pelosi and Biden and Kamala. Auspicious crowd. So everybody keep speaking up, keep pushing the edge, keep pushing back. Buy some knives, put them in your go bag, keep them with your SIG, keep them with your Glock, keep them with your 1911, just in case. All right, guys, enjoy your weekend. I'm out.